Hello, 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 and welcome to the space between ideas. I'm Blank Gates. Well, where are we? Hmm. Well, I got a bunch of things I want to talk about, but I don't really know how to talk about it. So it's been like a whole week, and we have all of these different ideas, and all of this stuff is going on, and we need to get some, we need to get some organization. So, so I used this with one of my students this week. Uh, I said, "Hey, sometimes you got to turn that frown upside down." All right. So the thing is, we're talking about performance booster. Now, I was looking at Empire Builders. They have some sales funnels for drop shipping, and I thought that they would have some really cool sales funnels I could apply to my business. I don't think that's that case anymore. I think basically they're just trying to hire people to work within their system. But the way that they form the offer is by asking people to purchase some kind of sales funnel, and then they're looking for people to man the equipment. So I don't want to say like this. Ah, there we go. So we're talking about the performance booster. All right, so let's remove that. It was on hold, but now I think we're just going to delete it. Now, there's a bunch of issues that I want to cover in this video. So just to kind of work through some things. Number one, emotional reaction, CEO, founder, creator. All right, so if you go back to, I think, one or two videos ago, um, I'm talking about my position as a CEO, a founder, and a creator, and I can feel it right now again. All right, so now this happened, one time it happened. You see, the reason why I can understand Tom a little bit better maybe than other people, I think for two reasons. Number one is that I'm much smarter than most people that Tom talks to. I mean, I know that he talks to a lot of smart people, but you can't just be smart in one area. And Tom, even though I don't know if people see it or not, but he has extreme depth of understanding in areas that are not like traditional, things that you would expect from a person who's so developed in mathematics and physics. And it goes back to this. Here it is. So, the thing is that when I was married in China, I was married to a Chinese actress, and I learned from this experience that people who are famous and people who are so the issue that she had was that she had, I don't know how many she has today, but so at least 10 years ago, she had 12 million followers on the Chinese version of Twitter. And so when we would get into some kind of argument, then it was easy for her to remove herself from the situation and then go to a place where she had acceptance and love. And the thing is that when your acceptance is like 12 million followers that you're not able to interface with directly, it's basically just a drug. It's like a dopamine drug. She goes there and she can just hide in her own little world. And of course, this is going to cause major distortions in the way that she's interfacing with other human beings. Now, I'm going to go back into that topic in a minute, but for now, um, so I went to Hollywood. I don't know if that's how you spell it. I went to Hollywood after I was living in Silicon Valley. So I was in, we went to Silicon Valley. I was trying to figure out how to do a startup company. And after 1 year, she decided that she wanted to go back to China. And I didn't want to go back to China. And that was the end of it. The difficulty, of course, was that I had to start some kind of new job, and it didn't seem nothing seemed to be working out in Silicon Valley. I don't know. I mean, I'm talking about how smart I am now, but I don't know if I was so smart in those days. So I decided to go to Los Angeles. All right, we got 5 minutes. Boop, boop. It still works. And so like okay, so I moved to North Hollywood, and I was going through this divorce through my own like through my own emotional problems. And I took some acting lessons, and then I registered for the New York Film Academy. I studied there for about 2 months before I quit. And the reason that I quit was because there's an expectation when you study directing that you're going to have to work with other people. And it's just so difficult for me to work with other people that like eventually the workload it increases and it increases. Like at the beginning you do this thing called a mise en scène. So it's like a one scene thing, like one scene video. And so we filmed this thing, and then the second one is called continuity. So you have to keep time, has to be constant, but then you have to change the camera from different angles. And then when I edited my mise en scène, it was still okay. Like things were okay because there was no sound. And then once we did continuity, suddenly we had to have sound, and also we had to splice the different pieces of film together. We were using actual film, and so there was a process that you had to go through. And I wasn't able to focus on the skills, and I wasn't able to keep up in the classes, and I wasn't able to make social contracts with other students in the class. And so eventually I had to drop out. There was an interesting thing that they did psychologically. So when I dropped out, they gave me this piece of paper, and it said like 0.000000001% of our students make it into the film industry. And I was like, what? But it was perfect, right? Because then it's like, okay, well, I was in the wrong place anyways. Now, it wasn't the wrong place. It was great. I got to run around the Warner Brothers studio. I got to meet people. I got to see how things worked. It was great. I loved it. It was amazing. Now, at the time, I had to make a bunch of reels, and so I was making different like short films about myself. I was taking headshots. I was trying to put together this portfolio. And one time, I was acting and in some kind of role, and I sent the I sent the video to Tom. He's been very patient with me with all of my expressions, and he said it looks like from the film that so when I'm actually speaking the lines, suddenly I turn like when I'm saying some specific words, and then he pointed out that like when you did that intellectually, emotionally, you weren't capable of lying. So I have a problem about telling the truth. Like I have to tell the truth. It's difficult for me. Like unless I'm being sarcastic and people can understand that I'm being sarcastic, I'm like I would much rather tell the truth all the time. Okay, maybe not all the time. I can start feeling it. So there's some instances where I need to lie to survive. Now, so if you go back to that video in this series about ChatGPT builds MVP, when I say that I'm the CEO, founder, and creator, it happened twice. So actually, I had to make that film twice because there was an error in the software the first time when I pushed pause, and then it was paused for too long, and then the crisp and the loom somehow it just messed up. It didn't save. But the first time I said it, I could feel it. And then now, actually, there's video evidence. You can go back and you can look for it. Fastest way is probably to go. So click the captions button, and then click the three dots, and then it will open up a transcript on the right hand side of the screen, and then search for the word founder, and then it will give you the time of the video, and then you can see my face. And so there's something around this idea that I'm uncomfortable with, and somehow I'm lying. Like, okay, is it founder? No, I feel comfortable with that. So it's CEO. So for some reason, I have an emotional problem around this concept of claiming that I'm a CEO. All right, let's keep it going. Okay, we don't need anything from there. All right, next. Also, we don't need to talk about родительный падеж. Okay, I speak a little bit of Russian. All right, let's talk about three divorces. So now, the lady that I married, she's okay. So the first man that she lived with him, I think, for about 10 years, but they didn't actually get married, I guess. And then she got married a second time, and they were married for a short period of time. And then they got divorced. And so I mean, on in Chinese news, they say that I'm like her third husband, which, I mean, technically you could say that it's not true, but basically it's true. Uh, and then after we got divorced, she got married, I think two or three, I don't even remember. Somebody sent me a message and said she got married, I think 3 years after we'd been divorced. And then suddenly she had a child. And so I don't know what's happening in her life. And, but what I realized is when a woman is divorced, the first time she gets divorced, it is both of the couple's fault. Like it's very hard to determine who's at fault, right? Because I don't know, it's too complicated to understand whose fault it is. But the second time you get divorced, um, I don't know, you start to realize that there's two issues. So how did you get into that relationship? Because you already have the experience from the first relationship and now you're in a second relationship. The problem is that like I didn't recognize that she viewed marriage much differently than I did. So I'm coming from like this Jordan Peterson perspective where they're talking about like the reason that it is a vow is because you're not going to be able to live together without that vow, without the community forcing that upon you. And yeah, sure, there's modern views that like, okay, it's okay to change partners constantly, but there's other perspectives as well. And one of those perspectives is that marriage is and family is fundamental to stability of societies. So when you start to have a second divorce, then that's when you're like, okay, there could be issues with this human being. If they've had two divorces, then it means there's an error in their programming. Something's not happening right. But once you get three divorces, no, it's your fault. It's your fault. And anybody who's considering marrying somebody who's been divorced 3 times, don't do it. Just don't. Like, why? They have a proven track record that they can't handle this type of commitment. Why did I write I'm smarter than you? Okay. So the last thing I wanted to talk about before we start to look at some other topics is the concept that I'm smarter than you. So the thing is, the other thing about Tom that I've noticed over the years is that a lot of people have been attracted to his book, Create Crucial Insight. But these people aren't smart enough. They're just simply not smart enough. And they're not smart enough in three different ways. All right. So first is to this is supposed to say recognized. I write I'm smarter than you, and then I write recognize like this. It's crazy. Anyway, so like a lot of people, like they try to read Tom's book, and they're just simply not smart enough. Number one, they cannot recognize what they're looking at. It's like, let's say I put like $1 million in front of you using dollar bills, and I take it to your village, and you're from a country that does not use paper currency. And you can't recognize what you're looking at. You don't understand the value of $1 million. All you see is pieces of paper with like a pyramid on it and an all-seeing eye. And you're like, okay, well, that can help me start a fire. And then so you use it as kindling. That's the value that you can get out of that. And so people that aren't smart, they cannot understand the value that they're looking at. And so this could go on to some of Tom's other work. So he's a physicist, and he's doing a lot of work, which is kind of similar to like the periodic table of elements, but it's for these elementary particles. And although I don't understand physics or math, from what he's saying, let's make the assumption that his work is correct. People, they're not smart enough to understand his work, and so they don't recognize what they're looking at. All right, number two is passion. So the thing is, like, I was looking at Hugh Henry. Hugh Henry's the acid capitalist, and he was talking about, like, I was looking at his video today. He was talking about how uh, he was so passionate, like, just there was something that drove him. All right. So the thing is, when you have intellectual curiosity, when your eye opens up just that little bit, and you can see something, and it's just something, it recognizes it. And for Hugh Henry, it just drove him to read and read and read. And for me, it drove me to conduct these clinical trials, thousands and thousands of hours, using his book, using his formulas, and trying to understand how does this work in human models. And so, yeah, there's some people who they think maybe they begin to recognize the work that he's created, but they don't have the passion. It means that they don't have it. They're just not, they're not interesting enough. They're not smart enough. Like, and this is something that I've noticed with some of my students recently as I start to work with AI tools. People that can't keep up, they're like less interesting to me, and I find that they're more emotional and that they can't keep up intellectually. And then suddenly it's like, uh, okay, so we can be friends. If you need help, call me. If you need me to give you something, I can give it to you. But you can't really interface with me anymore. It's too much of a challenge. And like, you're not paying me enough money. You're not providing enough insight, and you're the model of how you work. Uh, you're not able to. I don't know. Okay, so that's my problem actually at the end, because I should still be able to use my tools on people who are not smart enough to use them. Finally, we talk about resilience. All right. So, like, it's been 9 years, and there's been a couple of times when I almost quit, and I don't know what it was, but there's always been some little thing that's kind of pulled me back in. And it's very similar to my relationship with my LDS faith, where I've left, or I've been kicked out, or I've had challenges, or I've heard something that I couldn't understand, or I've met people who are against, or they can build huge arguments for why this is all crazy. And for me, it's like, come on, I've been traveling the whole world. I've seen all the religions. It's all BS. So don't tell me it's like fake. I know it's fake. So, like, now that we all know it's fake, then now just like get lost, because this is my experience with a higher power, and I am from this culture and I like it. So, like, I don't need you to bring your doubt and all these. Did you know this? Yeah, I've I've been concerned about those issues too. So, wow. Anyways, it's more about what's going on. All right, so let's get organized. So the thing is that we need to take steps forward from where we're at. Obviously, I don't really have an agenda. Like, I'm not exactly sure how this process is going to go. But let's start with my screen. So on the right-hand side, we have this thing called an endeavor. Now, Tom's always talking about this word endeavor. And most foreign people who don't speak English as a first language, they do not know this word. And that's been like the most difficult part of the experience, was that I would meet a new student that speaks a foreign language. I would tell them the word endeavor, and they're like, eh. And as soon as you put a stumbling block in somebody, like in front of somebody at the very first word, it's hard for them to concentrate after that. And so finally, I just had to start using the word task. Now, I know that endeavor is talking about something bigger, generally speaking, but it can also mean, so it could mean like the purpose of the company. Like, what is the company? What's the big goal? What are we moving toward? It could be a project. It could be like, our department endeavors to do. It's like it's just talking about the thing that which we are doing. And so over time, I've decided to just use the word task. Everyone understands what that means, and it has a very, very simple connotation, and in a very simple denotation. It just means I need to do this thing. So if we talk about a task, generally speaking, a task is going to be like a goal. It's the thing which we need to achieve. But it's also the path. So what are the things I need to do to reach that goal? So let's talk about a task as a thing I need to do to reach a goal. And it's always within some kind of system. Now, as people work toward reaching their goals, so they are working on tasks, they're always going to come up with some challenges, maybe recognition of new data, some kind of course correction, and need for more organization. So these are the endeavor elements from my, in the actual endeavor elements in Tom's book there's actually, he talks about effects. He talks about agendas, and he talks about potential, whatever that is. Oh, good, it's off the screen. All right, so it's like, okay, so now effects, you could say that this is the goal. Now, the agendas, yeah, you could say that that is the kind of like the path. And then the potential, you could say that has some connection with the starting point. And then, of course, agendas is also going to have some connection with the challenge. And then endeavor, it's like, it's the connection between these tasks, this thing that we're trying to do, and then the system. So that's an endeavor. Now, so let's say that the starting point in general for me is this concept of solving problems. So we need to find out what's going on. We need to gather data. We need to analyze data, generate solutions. All right, so let's focus on so identifying problems and gathering data. Oops. Now, when I am and analyzing data. So when I am identifying problems and gathering and analyzing data, I have one student from Italy, and he gave me a copy of this book called Problem Solving Tools. And here's Hugh Hendry, the asset capitalist. He wants somebody to design a hat for him. So if anybody's interested, he really wants somebody to design a cool hat for him. I think he doesn't like this one that much. All right, so I took these problem-solving tools, and then I said, okay, so structure the ideas. So of course that's like what's going on, and like what do we know, and then make a plan to execute it. Okay, so and then also it has analyzed data. So the nominal group technique is when you want to ask individuals first before you ask the group. Then brainstorming is, come up with ideas without any structure. Then affinity diagram or mind map, that's when we have categories. So we then begin to use the category as a gravitational force and pulling related ideas toward it. And then we can start using other techniques like 5 whys or a fishbone diagram, a flow chart about decisions, and then bing, 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 here's the force field analysis. Eventually we have the goal grid. Then we can make plans. So there's a lot of different, obviously I'm just trying to go through this very, very quickly, because if you want to read the book and understand all of these tools, go ahead. Now, as you can see, so the starting point generally is problem solving. We're all trying to do problem solving. And then here, when we have new data, overcoming challenges. So remember here, we have the challenges, recognition of new data, course correction. That's going to come from using different types of tools to structure ideas and then make plans and execute. And then eventually we need to record what's happening. There's a whole set of tools to do that from that book. And I've put my performance booster here. I mean, this is not actually the way it works, but at least it's fun. Now, if you look at this concept in terms of empty boxes, so the start obviously is here. You can write down like what is your starting point. Then you can talk about your milestones and the path that you're trying to that you're using to achieve what? Your goal, your change, the result. All right, so start, path, and goal. That's start, then path, and then goal. And then underneath we have the challenges. So that's from here. So it's important for you to understand your starting point, try to create some kind of path or agenda, and make sure you understand the goals, the result, the change that you're trying to create. And then identify some of those challenges. All right, so where are we right now for me? So what I've decided to do is I want to develop. So this is the concept of endeavor. So this is actually an endeavor. I want to develop a straightforward process for enhancing performance, designed for individual use or for manager-employee coaching sessions. That's the endeavor. And for people who don't know the word endeavor, this is my task, the big task, my goal. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I believe that a business is a design of a product and the design of the invitation to use the product. And so right now, we have what? The task list, the level of effort, the level of success, the level of efficiency, driving and restraining forces. All right, so I mean, in this model, we don't actually have the two different sections. We don't have the current levels of performance and desired level of performance. All we have is the elements, level of effort, level of success, level of efficiency, and force field analysis, which is fine for now, because the main goal that I have right now is I just want to make a list of the tasks. All right, so that's how I'm beginning to structure this, and I like to have some structure. And as I mentioned before, I've designed like a product, but now I have to turn it into software. And then you have to design the invitation to use the product, which is called marketing. Now, let's go into some of my documentation for how do I do this? Oh, I got all kinds of windows open. I didn't realize. Hopefully I didn't write anything embarrassing under there. All right, so what I did was I went into my ChatGPT. Develop a straightforward product. Delete for this is what I was trying to write that thing. So in the last, as I was making notes, I went through all of my like ChatGPT conversations, and I created this notes section. So in the past, I had this thing called, okay, so meet with these people and invite them to give input regarding these themes and typical activities. I don't know why I wrote this. But anyways, so here's another tool. So you can also list your tasks. Now, in this case, we're not looking at the level of performance and the level of success and the level of efficiency. What we want to do is we just want to break up the tasks into this week and next week. So, for example, if we go in here, so right now, like today, it's today until it's done. Okay, so what am I working on now? Okay, so go through the notes and add them to the mira diagram. So here's the notes file. So what I did was I took the notes from ChatGPT. Okay, so remember we were talking about so I had a question about a typical business plan. They said it should include a company description, product and services, market analysis, marketing, sales, operations plan, financial projection, funding and requirements. So obviously, if you look at this model, product and services, this is the design of the product. Market analysis, you could probably put that into marketing. Marketing and sales, it's also in marketing. The invitation of the invitation to use the product. But then suddenly you have operations plans.